The Punisher is now streaming on Netflix. All the episodes are there. I binge watched it and I'm here to bring you guys a review. And as always with these Netflix reviews, this will have spoilers, so go watch the show and then come back so we can fully discuss The Punisher. We last saw The Punisher in Daredevil Season 2, and since then the world believes Frank Castle to be dead, so he's fighting to keep that secret as well as trying to find out more about what truly happened to his family. And this show is widely different from the other Netflix show. If you show this to anyone who doesn't know the characters and don't show them the Marvel logo in the intro, they will believe this is based on true events, because The Punisher is a fantastic show because really it is a post-war drama about soldiers dealing with PTSD mixed with government conspiracies in the veins of the Post, maybe, of Snowden and things like that. Of course, it has a more action, military-oriented vein to it, and that's what makes the show stand out. That's why it's so good. And Jon Bernthal as Frank Castle, he kills it. I love just how damaged this guy is, but through flashbacks he can inhabit both roles really well. He can show how damaged this guy was through the war, how damaged this guy was through the tragedy that happened through his family, but you can also see that he was a kind-hearted man who was happy but also felt like he needed to go back to war. He has, since he was in Afghanistan, felt like he has always been at war with the world, be it with criminals or with the betrayals that he eventually faced in his life. And I love how the show starts. The first kill comes in right before the beginning of the intro, and Frank Castle just crushes a guy's throat with his bare hands. And right at the end of the first episode, he has a sledgehammer in hand when those guys are throwing the kid at the cement, and holy shit, I loved every second of it. And the show gets progressively more violent. This show is undeniably rated R, but not to the point where it cannot integrate with the other shows if The Punisher ever pops on those. This is violence exclusively because of how The Punisher makes his work happen, because of how he kills, because of how merciless he is. And he is merciless, much like many other characters in the show. Forget about superpowers in JJ and Luke Cage, forget about martial arts in Iron Fist and Daredevil. This show is raw, brutal, survival of the fittest, pure guerrilla style fighting. The Punisher and other characters, they use the environment around them. They use their hands, they use ropes to hang other people, they use guns, they use knives, they just use everything, and the show really does talk about that. I love how the show integrates the conversation about gun violence, and it was very wise of Marvel to postpone The Punisher after the unfortunate shootings in Las Vegas, because I can see a lot of people being uncomfortable watching this show because how realistic it is. This guy has no superpowers. Nobody has superpowers. The Punisher in this show gets beaten to shit, especially at the end when he's captured by Rollins and Russo and he's being tortured and he's remembering Maria, but all in a black background, not in his room as he was remembering in flashbacks throughout the show. This show really puts a human perspective on it. This show really does display the Punisher as someone who can be beat, but is just as brutal as his enemies. And let's go back to the conversation about gun violence and the social, political, and cultural commentary on America right now. This guy, I can't remember his name, but the one who played Lewis, this kid was fabulous in this show. I really enjoyed this character. It's really a raw look into how damaged a soldier can be and how damaged the Punisher is, but this guy takes a very different route than him. This guy feels desperate. You get that through the show. He is in this therapy meeting group that is run by a friend of the Punisher, and he really is damaged. You can see that in the relationship with his father. He almost kills him at one point, and then he blows 2 buildings up as the Punisher and Micro are looking at Madani as she is in the hospital. And that's one of the minor complaints I do have with this show, is that at one point when those bombings happened, there is no Iron Fist, there is no Luke Cage, no Jessica Jones, no other superhero. I am the last guy to complain about this, but we are right now in a climate where these things should connect, because at least the Netflix universe, it's all set in New York. And maybe this show is happening while Daredevil is supposed to be dead at the end of The Defenders, but we needed a little bit of connectivity there. But that's really minor. I was not really bothered about that throughout the show. It just popped into my head as soon as it happened. But the Lewis kid really had an impact on me, and it really shows the impact he has on the Punisher and Karen. I really like how Karen was integrated into the show. She popped up in the beginning, then she disappears. She has no connection with the Punisher because the Punisher cannot have any connections to anybody. So then she comes back to have that socio-political commentary that really fits well into the show and makes it much more grounded. Let's talk about another shining star in this show, Micro, and the relationship with Micro and the Punisher. How they're both playing with each other, how Micro is very much like the Punisher in the way he's suffering because he cannot see his family. He's depriving himself of his family, and the Punisher does not agree with that because the Punisher had no choice in not seeing his family. And so these guys bicker around and they really do not like each other. And I like how the Punisher integrates himself into his family home, and then he's just teasing the guy, and then again these guys beat the shit out of each other. They don't trust each other, they don't like each other, but organically they start to see eye to eye a little bit, and they go on this mission together and attacking the people who cost them their lives. But the Punisher has one rule: they all die. And Ebon Bachrach, who played Micro, is not only great in his role, but Micro as a character, he is really the heart of this show. I mean, his storyline and how his wife at one point wants to go to bed with the Punisher, which is only natural, but it really hurts. And how this guy sees himself unable to help his family directly really hurts as you are watching it. This guy really pulls on the heartstrings, and I really did think he was dead at the end when he was accidentally shot by the Homeland Security versus the Russo guys. The show does a great job at showing the importance of Micro and how damaged he is, how damaged his life was because of wanting to do the right thing, and it does show their relationship organically growing and how important he became to Frank Castle and how important he was to helping Frank Castle accomplishing his mission. Madani here, she was kind of not working for me at the beginning. I was not very interested in her storyline. It's once she starts going out with Russo that she really does work for me, because I got the vibes of Kilgrave and Jessica Jones. Not to that extreme level, but I still remember the feeling I got when I saw that shot at the end of episode 6, I believe, where Russo was washing her out of the blood she had of her partner after he killed him, and it was like Russo washing the blood out of her that he put on her. It was really an impactful shot and really gave me those Jessica Jones Kilgrave vibes, because this guy has an enormous delight in controlling situation, in playing with people, and that really comes to a head when Frank Castle is captured and being tortured by him and Rollins, and it really comes to a head at the end in that final confrontation at the carousel, which we will get to. And Ben Barnes does a fabulous job in this. He is an equal to Frank Castle. You get that through those flashbacks that show their friendship in the army and him being the best friend of the family, which really hurts when you find out that he was the one who pulled the trigger. But the show does show them as equals, but this guy is Frank Castle if life had gone right for him, if he had become rich, if he had everything he wanted, everything he could want, and if he was a son of a bitch who betrays his brothers. And I love how the show has this running gag of saying that he has this very pretty face, these very pretty looks that get him everywhere, because if you know who he becomes in the comics and at the finale of the show, it does really work to foreshadow what happens to him by the end. But what I really liked about him is how unhinged he really was. You can see that this guy has very good self-control, but when he lets go, the guy lets go. Rollins is the one that really didn't work for me. Paul Schulze, who plays him, did a great job performance-wise, but when it comes to the character, he never really became a threat. He shows up in flashbacks at the beginning, then he gets punched out by the Punisher and he gets blinded because of that on one eye, then he comes back and he wants to torture Frank Castle. And we'll get to the violence right now, because this is the shining example of how rated R this show is. Because once he annoys Billy Russo enough and Frank Castle gets out of those traps in that chair, and he just beats the shit out of him, popping his eyes in and killing him like the Mountain killed the Viper in Game of Thrones. And that's how violent this show is. Again, the Punisher uses everything at his disposal to get rid of enemies. And I love that one shot where they're invading Micro's former base when he's already out of there, and Punisher is killing folks, hanging them, slashing them in the throat, stabbing them in the stomach, in the chest, shooting them, and then he just walks in with this decapitated hand in his hands, and then he throws the head into the midst of the soldiers, and it has a grenade attached to it. That shit is violent as it can be. I cannot wait to see haters on the internet complain about how Punisher was not rated R enough. This show couldn't be more rated R, to the point where it still fits with the others, and I love it for that. Let's talk a little bit about episode 9, when the people find out that Frank Castle is alive. I was going to pause the show for a bit after that episode, but when it ends, holy shit, the show just keeps going and going and going, and you don't feel the stigma at all of this having 13 episodes and not 10 or 8 like the Defenders. The show just keeps building and building and building, and I love how it's much more dramatic than it is action driven. The action scenes here are awesome and very entertaining, but they really are triggers to the emotional and motivational elements of the show and the characters, and this show understands that, because if it doesn't have good characters, it cannot keep on going. And it has great characters, and it utilizes them to their maximum degree. Now let's talk about the shining example of all action scenes and finales, when you're building and building and building, and then you're paying off, coming full circle. Billy Russo versus Frank Castle at the carousel. Again, Billy Russo just playing with the Punisher. He has a delight in this. He loves playing with him. He puts 2 kids in there screaming, making him remember his kids as they were yelling and laughing as they were in the carousel. Then that fight scene ensues. He basically has Frank Castle trapped, and they just beat the fuck out of each other. Not only does the Punisher shoot him through the cheek, and then he smashes his head repeatedly in the mirror, and then he just makes you look at himself, and you see how shattered he is. He's as shattered now outside as he is on the inside, and he has to see it. And I love the symbolism here. It's not subtle, but it doesn't have to be. I just love how they utilize it, and I love that he didn't kill them, because all these guys, corrupt or not, throughout the show, they all have a code of honor, and it is consistent throughout the show. And so Billy Russo not only did he not kill the Punisher, but he did not allow Rollins to kill him, and so now the Punisher, Frank Castle, allows his former best friend, his former brother, to live and see what he truly has become. And I love how the show teases that he is alive, but he cannot remember things well. His brain cannot function right, and they don't know what's going to happen, and we don't even see it. The show just has this spanning shot going into his hospital bedroom, and then it cuts away. It's very, very well done. But the ending of the show truly is powerful. How Frank Castle just sits down in a therapy group with his friend Kurt, and then he just says that right now he doesn't have a war to fight, and he's just scared, and the show cuts away, fades to black. And it's a really, really powerful ending because of everything the show talks about, how realistic it is on how it takes the character and his world. We don't get connections to superheroes. We have former soldiers, people with trauma, dealing with PTSD. We have corrupt government officials trying to make the truth go away. We have people who are good people also folding the narrative as they see fit. And everything is gray in this show. I love how nothing is black and white. I understand completely how some people may see even the Punisher as a very, very bad character. My only weaknesses really are Rollins as a character and the whole thing about the bombing and we not seeing any other involvement from any other superheroes, not even Matt Murdock as a lawyer or anything. But overall, the Punisher is everything it promises to be, both for the character and for its world. It detaches itself enough from the other shows to be its own unique thing, and it stands its own grounds as a very visceral, brutal, realistic, and very gritty take on this world. The Punisher is violent, rated R as it can be. It fits the character, it fits the world, it has a great build and great payoff. It is one of the best Netflix shows by far. I can see a lot of people putting it on first place because the Punisher absolutely is a collector's item. What did you think of The Punisher, my beautiful geekies? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Was it everything you wanted? And is it your favorite new Netflix show? Let me know in the comments below. And once more, thank you so much for watching. Today I will have reviews for Coco, Mudbound, and late at night, last flag flying. Can't wait to see you there. And so until then, you stay beautiful, you stay geeky, and if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button and the bell so we can be geeky united!